when computers first came about, and it was really cool to have fonts. But over time, I feel like we lost that touch to the creative side a little bit and that sort of handmade look and feel. That's why I really love making font. A really nice thing to do, and then typing your letters once you've created them is super satisfying.
Hey there. To get started with this interview, start by introducing yourself.
Hello, my name is Karin Newport. I'm from iPad Lettering, and my passion is to help people be more creative with their iPads. I create Procreate brushes and practice sheets, and I make the odd font every now and then. You'll find all my tutorials on my YouTube channel.
Do you have any childhood memories? Something very strong about how you really got into playing with letters?
Yeah, so there's two things that come to mind, really. The first one is that I grew up in Switzerland and I was surrounded by the Swiss style design. There's a very strong typography community in Switzerland. Helvetica means Switzerland, so that's a bit of that. But then also my dad bought me a computer when I was quite young, and he also bought the Corel Draw software application that had lots and lots of fonts. And so I was obsessed with trying out all the different fonts and which one would look the best so I could make labels for all my school books.
And was there any aha moments in your professional career?
There wasn't really an aha moment as such, but I was always very bad at drawing. But I really love to be creative and I love typography. And so drawing letters came quite natural to me. I always prided myself on having a nice handwriting, and all my school books were really neatly written. And so that's really how I got into it. And then also sort of testing out the more artistic side of lettering and modern calligraphy felt a lot more natural to me. And so that's how I started.
Why do you think other people should actually care about crafting their own alphabets, their own fonts?
So I think when computers first came about, and it was really cool to have fonts that made everything look really uniform and made it look professional. But over time, I feel like we lost that touch to the creative side a little bit and that sort of handmade look and feel. And that's why I really love making fonts and making them not perfect, but making them look like I've written something. A really nice thing to do, and then typing your letters once you've created them is super satisfying. Also, I think that learning curve is not too hard. It's something that can be done quite quickly and quite easily, and really something that's accessible to anyone, even if you're not super creative, but it's sort of a really nice entryway into the creative side of things.
So, what's your experience with font creation software?
So the first time I had to make a font is when I actually had to make a logo that looked sharp on a printed piece of paper. So instead of putting a JPEG on this piece of paper, we ended up creating a glyph with the logo on it. And that's the first time I used font making software, and it was quite an elaborate process. But then as time went on, I actually found the Fontself plugin for Illustrator, and that's how I really made my first font. And then later on, I also discovered the Glyph software for Mac. And now finally we have Fontself on the iPad, and I just really love it because I love using the iPad, obviously, but I also like it because I can do it anywhere. I don't have to use my computer. I can sit somewhere where I'm waiting or where I'm relaxing, and I can draw some letters and have fun, and it's not too complicated, and it's just a fun thing to do.
Did you have any surprise when you started using Fontself on iPad?
So the first thing that stood out when I tried Fontself on iPad was how easy it was to use. There's not really much of a learning curve. But then the first thing I noticed that was so nice are the brushes. There's different brushes to use, and I make Procreate brushes, so I know a little bit about brushes and what feels nice and what doesn't, and they just feel amazing to draw with. So I was very surprised when I first tried the brushes. And then another thing I really like as well is that I'm very familiar with using Illustrator, and so a lot of the things that are in the Fontself app sort of feel like using Illustrator. So I feel there's a lot of familiar things that have been incorporated into the app, which makes it really nice to use.
Do you have any rituals or a routine to get started when you need to go into the creative flow?
So for me to get started with my creative journey with my creative flow really is to do brainstorming. I like to collect inspiration from everywhere, not just from Pinterest, but, also driving around, looking out in nature, and then create a little mood board. I like creating mood boards, and that's really how I get started. There's nothing worse than starting on a blank sheet of paper. So having a mood board is really nice because you already got something there and you don't have to start from scratch.
Many people actually get into a creative block, and I was wondering whether you had some tricks about how you can overcome these creative blocks.
Yeah, so this is a good question, and I struggle with this quite a lot, actually. Sometimes I'm just forcing myself just to get through. There's a deadline, I have to meet it, and I'm Swiss, so I'm quite good with time, and I'm quite good with sticking to deadlines. But sometimes what I find is really helpful as well is if you allow yourself to create bad work. There was this study done with some people, and they needed to create pots. And then there was one group of people who had to create the most beautiful pot they could create, and just create one. And then there was another group, and they had to make as many pots as possible. And in the end, the group that made more pots were the ones that actually came up with the more beautiful pots as well. And so that's why I create many, many different versions of the thing that I want to do. And I just keep going. And I think that's maybe another thing. You just keep going. You're not stopping. I think when you lose the momentum, then that's when you think you have that block. But just sometimes you just have to force yourself and keep going and trust the process and know that in the end there will be something nice that's going to come out.
Where you see the whole type and lettering industries go over the next 5-10 years?
So I think it's not too dissimilar to when the computers first came about and when we started using fonts that you could type rather than handwrite. So it's a similar thing here. I think there's always a part that really appreciates the handmade thing. And at the moment, AI is not that good yet, so you can really tell if something's been generated or something has been created by hand. And I think part of me always appreciates that. And I don't think that's going to go away. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us. AI for me is more a tool that's going to make me more productive. I don't see it as a competition in the art that I create, more as a helper in taking away all the boring tasks that I have to do. And ChatGPT has been amazing. So I've been using it quite liberally to help me with all sorts of things. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I embrace it. I like tech and really allow us to spend more time doing the things that we love doing rather than doing the boring things that we don't want to do.
Are there any creatives out there from whom you would like to learn more about?
One of the lettering artists I really admire is Ryan Hemrick. I had the honor to meet him a few years ago at a typism conference, and I got to spend some time with him in a workshop. And I think he's got really good stories, and he's just an amazing artist. So I recommend that you chat to him.
And the last one, just to give us some fresh air, is to know whether there are like 3 songs that you really enjoy in these moments.
I'm not sure if this is odd, but I don't actually listen to music when I work or when I'm in the car. I like silence. I like just being there with myself, and so I don't to listen to music that much, especially not for work. The music distracts me a little bit. I can't even listen to podcasts, or sometimes I do. Depends what I do. But maybe if I had to pick one song that I would put on to get me a little bit hyped up, then I would pick Sia, Unstoppable. I do like that sound and getting that feeling of being unstoppable.